So we are learning the Sichot from volume 1 for Purim, first of all, and we're in chapter 5,
Purim Hayom!
which is page 203. So what did we see so far? So far we saw that that it's an incorrect way to represent the Megillah, that the Jews did whatever they need to do diplomatically to solve their problems in the time of Haman. Rather, first of all they did tshuva, and then they did what they needed to do diplomatically. It says that that's the most important lesson to take out of the Megillah. That it really doesn't matter how good your vessel or instrument that you're going to use is. What matters is how connected you are above. A very simple instrument can become useful for changing even a situation like the situation they were in. Now he says this can also teach us something more. בדברים האמורים יובן מאמר ירושלמי. From what we just explained, we can understand the well-known statement from the עולמים וזורע. What does that mean? מאמין בחי עולמים וזורע? That a person believes in the life of all worlds, חי עולמים, or he who is alive in all the worlds, and he plants, he sows, וזורע. לכאורה, I just noticed זורע and sow is close. לכאורה יש להבהיר, so it says it's a very simple question the person needs to ask. היכן מתבטאת כאן האמונה? What faith is demonstrated by a person sowing or planting seeds?
He believes Hashem will make the seeds.
הרי אפילו כופרים להבדיל, שאינם מאמינים בחי העולמים, זורים מתוך הנחה טבעית, שכשישנה זריעה תבוא הצמיחה. Even a person who doesn't believe at all in God, he plants and he sows, and he understands that there's a natural process that he's taking advantage of, that once he plants the seeds, he's going to get a produce back. So what is there that has to do with faith here? אך פירוש הדבר הוא, what the meaning of this is, what did the Yerushalmi want to say? אמונתו של איש ישראל מתבטאת גם בשעה שהוא נוקט פעולה כגון זריעה. That the faith of a Jew is demonstrated even when he does something absolutely natural that everybody else does, like planting seeds. שבתהליך טבעי צריכה להביא לידי צמיחה מבלי שהדבר קשור באמונה וביטחון בהשם יתברך. Which in everybody else's eyes is just a natural process that brings produce, regardless of whether you have faith and confidence and trust in Hashem, in God. שהרי בעיניו הוא רואה שגם שדותיהם של אלה שאין להם כל עסקים עם הקדוש ברוך הוא מצמיחים. Everybody can see, including this Jew who's planting, he has his field, but he knows that all the fields around him also produce wheat and they produce cotton or whatever they're planting. So he sees ample evidence that this is a natural process, and yet still, למרות זאת, יודע הוא שכבן ישראל שונה אצלו הדבר מן העולם כולו. He knows that as a Jew, for him it's different. That's what it means to be a Jew. כשם שכלל ישראל אינו כפוף לחוקי הטבע, just as we saw in the first part yesterday, that the Jewish people are not submissive under the laws of nature. They don't. The laws of nature don't apply the same way. What does it mean? There are laws of nature, but what is more important is the connection to God. כן גם היחיד. It's true at the national level, at the level of the entire people, and it's also true for the individual. ובו בזמן ששדות העולם כולם מצמיחים על יסוד חוקי הטבע. And at the same time, Hashem does this on purpose, that all the fields produce
beautiful
produce naturally. הרי אצלו תצליח הזריעה רק בזכות האמונה והביטחון בחי העולמים. By him, he knows that the only reason that the field will produce what it's supposed to produce naturally is because of his faith and confidence and trust in the life of all worlds in God.
Which is why I always say when I go into a car park, Hashem, help me find a place to park. Because you sometimes find, you sometimes don't find. But it's when you trust in Hashem,
right? Then it's a different story altogether. It may be that the world seems to you the same, like there's no difference. But that's not what the world is only about. The world is not only about the world is also about the observer, about the person who's living in the world. And your life is completely different when you live it based on faith and confidence in Hashem. Completely different. כשם שהוא בבעלי עסק, in the same way that this is true for those who make a living from, in this case, a farmer, or a business, or whatever it is, anybody who has
business people.
Yeah, but he's talking about anybody who has any kind of basic, anybody who has any kind of investment in the world. So the same thing should be known as the same thing by people who learn all day long. Yoshvei oil, those who dedicate their time to learning. True success in Torah is not dependent on how good your talents are. But rather in the help from heaven that comes out of the person's fear of heaven. And this causes a person to study, to learn with tremendous dedication and investment of his energy. And because of this yigiyah, because of this investment of his toil, then he sees the success, he finds the success. And it's much more than what he put into it. The same idea as planting, that you put in a few seeds, and what you get back is a lot more than what you put in. The same thing is true by anything that's spiritual that you do, like learning Torah. The ofen shel mitzia, and it feels like a mitzia. Mitzia means that it's surprising. It's something surprising that you didn't expect. When the main component is missing, it won't help if you have an infinite amount of talent. In fact, even when people say that success is 1% talent and 99% effort, even effort will not help. What he's saying here is that it's not just putting in the hours. For a Jew, it has to be putting in the hours with faith and confidence in Hashem that I will be successful. Why? Because in this case, we're talking about the wisdom, the divine wisdom, the wisdom of Hashem. That's what the Torah is. When the main component is, which is the faith and confidence in Hashem, then Hashem rewards the person with supernatural success. Success that's above and beyond everything that he expected. Okay, so this is definitely all a very interesting topic in the Parsha. Parashat Tzav. So now we're moving on to Parashat Tzav, the Parsha of the week. לפסוק אש תמיד תוקד על המזבח לא תכבה, נאמר בירושלמי, should be על הפסוק. But there's a verse that says there should be a constant fire, an eternal fire on the external altar, the outer altar. It should never be extinguished. The Yerushalmi says about this, the Jerusalem Talmud says about this, Tamid afilu b'Shabbat. Always, meaning eternal, even on Shabbos. Tamid, eternal, afilu b'tumah, even when there is tumah, even when there is profanity, when people are not pure, they're impure. Still the fire should be ready. Now, where do we take this? כפי שהוסבר פעמים רבות קיימים כל העניינים והעבודות של המשכן והמקדש הגשמי, גם במשכן והמקדש הרוחני נמצא בתוך כל אחד מישראל. This has been explained many times, and we saw this in the last few weeks. All the different services that were done in the tabernacle and in the temple physically also exist in the spiritual temple and tabernacle which is inside every Jew. המזבח הוא ליבו של האדם. It's a well-known thing that the altar symbolizes the heart.
Which one?
The external altar, the outer altar, the one that was on the outside where all the sacrifices were brought, the meat was placed on it, that represents the heart. You can even tell by the fact that it's meaty. Yeah, you put all the meat. But there's a lot of reasons for it. However, there were two altars. You just asked. Which one? There was also an internal altar. There was an altar inside the sanctuary. So what is usually explained is that the inner altar is the inner aspect of the heart, and the external altar, the outer altar that was in the courtyard of the tabernacle and of the temple, that represents the external facets of the heart. כשם שבמזבח הגשמי היה מזבח החיצון מזבח הפנימי, כך יש בלב חיצוניות הלב ופנימיות הלב, like we just said. המזבח שלגביו בא הציווי יש תמיד תוקד על המזבח הוא המזבח החיצון. Where does it say that there should be a constant eternal fire, flame? On the external altar.
The inner altar there wasn't really too much fire.
It wasn't at all.
When you put the guitars.
They brought an ember every day so that the incense would burn. But that was the extent of the fire that was on it. But the external altar, there was always a fire going. There was always in one corner a packet of wood that was a pile of wood that was meant for the fire. and they used it whenever they needed it. So the one that has the eternal flame is the external altar. B'vchina ruchanit, and spiritually, צריכה להיות התלהבות גלויה בחיצוניות הלב לקוד אל האלוקות. Okay, Lev Chaim, I don't understand what this is doing here, but what does he say? He's saying that in the person, in us, what this means is that we always have to have an external excitement about serving God. That's what it means to have fire on the outside. It has to be usually when you talk about Chassidus, so people say, something that's external is not that good. It should be an internal flame. Kind of contradictory, because here we see that the flame that the Torah commands that it should be on the altar all the time is on the external altar, the outer altar. Why is it not in the inner altar? That's where it should have been. Okay, so this was a big topic and issue in the first and second generation of Chabad. It was such a big topic and issue that it caused a split in Chabad. Right? It wasn't the only reason. There were many other reasons, but the thing that was left over, that was engraved in memory, was that the Middle Rebbe, the second Rebbe, wrote a pamphlet called the Pamphlet of Excitation. And there was such a big controversy.
Spirus.
So the controversy was like this, that the Alter Rebbe had, his greatest student was Aaron of Strashella. And Reb Aaron was you don't know how close they were. I mean, the Alter Rebbe felt that he was more than his son. He said this many times, that he is the person that I trust my chassidus with. But after he passed away, there was a split. And the split was over something very interesting, that Reb Aaron kept saying that the excitement should be external. That a person should show his excitement in God, his vitality, the feelings that he's experiencing. He should externalize them. They should be seen. And the Middle Rebbe said, "This is not what my father taught me. My father taught me that only when they are spontaneous should they be seen. But it's very dangerous because a person could bring himself to show it even when he doesn't feel it." And that becomes a Iszarat. That becomes a foreign fire. That's what it's called. That it's a fire that was not brought from the altar itself. It's like a fire that somebody introduced. Meaning he brought a sacrifice, and he also brought a stick with a torch with fire on it. And that's what he used to burn the fire. Or, even worse, that he has in the time when there is the temple or the tabernacle, he does something even worse. He has a fire in his backyard. He has an altar in his backyard. And in that altar, he brings sacrifices. Not only that, he has a local priest and he brings him in. What is that? That is all for pomp and show. That's all to show how important I am. That is external fire. That's called foreign fire. It's not really being excited in serving God. Because if a person is really excited in serving God, he's excited in God, he's not excited in his position in the world, showing, look at how alive I am in serving God. That's a very, very fine point. And it was so big that in the end it caused a split. I said there's many other reasons why there was a split. But after Reb Aaron of Strashella passed away, everybody who followed him came back to the Tzemach Tzedek. At least that's what the story is saying. But in any case, it's a big deal.
Except for those who didn't.
Now the problem is here that the Rebbe says that the outer altar means that a person should have open excitement in the external aspect of the heart for his service of God. So what is he saying? Is he going back to what Reb Aaron said? So first of all, you should know that the Rebbe wanted to print Reb Aaron's books. He very much wanted to. Because first of all, he has one of the best documentations of the Alter Rebbe's teachings. He really wanted to, but he said, I can't because of Spitz Chabad, right? The pintlach, the point, the guys that are pointy, strike you. He said, I don't want to get into an argument with him. Because everybody remembers there was some kind of controversy, I don't want to get into it. The Rebbe thought that this wasn't relevant anymore. But, is this what he means? Does he mean that a person should have open excitement about
But he didn't see the Rebbe davening without opening excitement. He saw
No,
the
he
Rebbe
didn't
have
see- the Rebbe
opening
never-
excitement
never saw.
after davening and
Right.
before davening
Right.
with a singing.
No, he didn't see it during the davening. So what is he talking about? So first of all, he's not talking about necessarily about davening. That's it. That's the first Shlomi. The first issue is that he's not talking about davening here. What is he talking about? Exactly what you just said. That the Rebbe showed the excitement all the time. Not during davening. During davening, when you are serving Hashem through davening, that's where the most delicate situation is, that a person can fall into false excitement. Meaning that the Rebbe knew, and everybody knows, that when you're davening, people look at you from time to time. And there you have this Yetzer Hara, you have this evil inclination, negative side that you want to show off. And you want to show that, oh, look at how he's davening. Look at how he's praying. He's so intense, he's so this, he's so that. And people will be amazed by this. So he says, there you have a problem. You have to be careful not to involve excitement externally in the davening. If it happens by itself, if it happens spontaneously, that's something else. That's what the Rebbe wrote about. That if there's spontaneous excitement, that's something else. The Alter Rebbe himself, they say that they had to pad his room because he was so excited when he died. So if it's like that, that's something else. But normally what he's talking about here is when a person is doing everything else, not davening. In other things, it has to be excited. I'm giving tzedakah, I have to be excited. I go to my Sudas Purim, I have to be excited. What do you mean I have to be? If I have to be, I'm forcing myself. So, even if it's a little bit external, there's no big deal. I'm going to learn. I'm excited. It's Shabbos, I'm excited. Because all these things are my excitement in life. This is what I get my excitement. What does a non-Jew get his excitement from? Could be that he has all this freedom to do all kinds of other things. Maybe he gets excited from it. But I get excited from this. Tochen HaShabbat. So why does the Yerushalmi now here talk about two things? Shabbos and Tumah. That even on Shabbos you should have this external excitement, and even when you are in an impure state. Tochen HaShabbat hu shvita hi nazrut v'italut min ha'olam. What do we do on Shabbos? On Shabbos we rest. But the rest, of course, is not physical rest. But first of all, we take a step back from the world. We don't take a step back, we take a step up. We elevate above the material world. And because of this, on this day, we are prohibited from doing things that are not just melacha, not just something that the Torah says is prohibited because it's a forbidden type of work, but also things that are called uvdim dechol, even things that look like the things that we do on a weekday. And there's many things that we don't do. Many people don't brush their teeth because it's an uvdim dechol. Some people open it, but you get the idea. That's the things that look like they're weekday actions. We don't do them either. Why is this? Because מבחינת העבודה הנפשית של האדם פירוש הדבר השגה, קליטה עיונית. Because if the rest of the week you're extracting from yourself, you're investing in the world, you're investing in your life, you're doing things, you're taking from the inside out. On Shabbos, it's the opposite. You go back to the source, and it's as if you're, some people would say, re-energizing. Today we have something like that. So you can re-energize physically, which is what most people think Shabbos is. Okay, take a rest, physical rest. That's also good. Okay, Shena v'Shabbat Tanug, even just to sleep on Shabbos, that's called Onik Shabbat. Just so people think that if you sleep on Shabbos, you didn't perform the commandment to enjoy that, take pleasure in Shabbos. You do. But there's higher pleasure than that. There's also other things that you can re-energize in. What is it called? It's called integrating. On Shabbos, everything that you learned, everything that you did during the week, but especially the spiritual work that you did, it integrates into you. You're in a state of swallowing up, of klita. How do we say klita? Absorption. You're absorbing things. What kind of absorption? Especially intellectual absorption. Everything that I learned during the week, it all comes together on Shabbos. The Arizal, Isaac Luria, he used to learn 6 different ways of a pshat in Talmud, the literal meaning, 6 different ways of learning the different passage in the Talmud, one each day, and then on Shabbos, he'd integrate them all into one thing. That's the integration that happens on Shabbos. And that's called the Karata Shabbat Oneg. That's what it means to call the Shabbos a day of pleasure, not of rest, of pleasure, Oneg. And this is the real reason why I don't have time to deal with the mundane world. Because I'm busy with taking it all in. I'm busy with making it something that's integrated into me. So I don't have time now to add something more from the world. I don't have time to go sightseeing. There's a tshuva from the Ramah that they were very angry at. Some people were angry at him. That how could it be? He also wrote a philosophy book. How could you deal with philosophy? How could you deal with Kabbalah? How could you deal with it? When do you have time? He was a posek. Everything he did was meant to tell people how to do the mitzvahs. How could you have time for these things? They're not practical. You don't do anything with them. So he used to say, he writes in this tshuva, and I think it's tshuva chet, it's a famous tshuva, in his shoot. He writes, and everybody who knows me knows that the time that I thought about these things was when I went, in times that other people go to sleep, I went outside, he's talking about Shabbos and Yom Tov, I went outside and I took a stroll, and during that time I thought. So he says, even when he goes sightseeing, it's not for just sightseeing. He's integrating in his mind everything that he learned. He brings it all in. So because of that, he has no time. Really, what a Jew feels on Shabbos is that I have no time for the world. It's not that I'm refraining. That's completely. It's not that it's not true. There are people that what they feel is Shabbos comes in, they have to turn off their cell phone, they have to turn off their computer, they have to turn off life. But somebody who understands the real pleasure of Shabbos, he understands my life really starts during those 25 hours. Those are the 25 hours I have to integrate everything I did the whole week, to make it into something. It's when I see my family and I can tell them and we can share things and we have time together. So those things, that's what the Shabbos is really about. So that is about taking in, like we said, what was the word you used? Absorption. עלול לפו האדם זה לחשוב כי מאחר והוא עסוק בהשגה והוא עומד בדרגה שנעלית מכל התרגשות אין לו צורך באש. So a person might think that because I'm absorbing, because I'm now completely spiritual, maybe I don't have time for excitement about mitzvos, about serving Hashem. משום כך נאמר לא תכבה אפילו בשבת. It says excitement should be even on Shabbos. It's very interesting because we say לא תבערו אש בכל מושבותיכם. He says, but that is with external work that you do. In your heart, there should always be excitement, especially on Shabbos. In fact, that's the time when you give to your family, when you give to your children, when you give to those that surround you, the most inspiration for being excited about serving Hashem. Min hakatzeh hasheni, on the other end, we have Adam ha'omed merachok choshesh she'en lo chas v'shalom kol kesher. If a person is standing outside a circle of people dancing, and nobody is bringing him in, so he feels like he has no connection. The same thing is true if a person is profane, meaning if he's impure in some way. It could be that because he had a different upbringing, he wasn't taught Yiddishkeit, he didn't have the right education. He doesn't know what all these people, he sees all these people learning in these books, he doesn't even know how to read it. And so on and so forth. So he feels he's on the outside, he feels that he's impure. He's what they call in India, he's an untouchable. That's what he feels like. That's literally what an impure person is. You can't touch him, right? Theoretically. So he says, "Lo tichbe afilu l'tumah." He says, even if you think that about yourself, understand that the thing that's going to get you out of that impure state is the excitement. So even if you feel impure, the flame should not be extinguished. The flame should continue on. You should be excited in what you do. דאג שאש התמיד לא תכבה, שתדל להעלות את האש האלוקית שבקרבך. You have to do everything that you can to strengthen the flame, the excitement of serving Hashem inside of yourself. דבר זה יביא לכך שלא תכבה. That itself, the fact that you don't give up, that you refuse to say I'm impure and therefore I have no lot in the holiness, The fact that you yourself raise the flame inside yourself and you act with excitement, that will bring about that the fire will not be extinguished in you. And especially in the way, this is going to be what we're going to learn tomorrow also. The Maggid of Mezrich, who was the successor to the Baal Shem Tov, he had a very interesting explanation of the words lo tichbe. It should not be extinguished. He said like this: Kol ilanei halo, hadvarim halo tichuvim, tichbe yechubu. Those things that are not, they will be extinguished. Not extinguished, you should read it as not, extinguished. Whatever is not, whatever is negative, whatever is wrong in you yourself will be extinguished. And this happens when you take the first step. So this is exactly what the Baal Shem Tov's separation is about. Separation means finding a positive aspect of this thing that's negative in me, finding a positive aspect. In this case, excitement is definitely something that can be very negative. Because a person's excited about all his material possessions. He's excited about eating. He's excited about these things that really don't give him anything in life. He says if you use excitement in the right way, which is, again, in the time of Reb Aaron of Strashel, the second generation of Chabad, when the split happened, there was like a sense that excitement is treif. Excitement is completely unallowed. He says no, excitement should be allowed, not just allowed, it has to be encouraged when it comes to serving Hashem. And doing that actually extinguishes the false excitement in a person, the profane, the impure excitement in a person. So the whole problem that we might have is, what he's saying here is, that if we're drawn to things that are not pure, they're not holy, it's probably because we don't have enough excitement about the things that are pure and holy. This is actually what we learned last week, if you remember. We said that tshuva, actually 2 weeks ago, tshuva, he said here, means that you're more excited about doing the mitzvah. Because after a person has done tshuva, after he's returned to God, after he's sinned, so his feeling is that not only am I happy to be able to do what I should be doing, by connecting to the infinite, by connecting to Hashem, I also have the added benefit that I'm not there anymore. He looks back at where he used to be, and that gives him added motivation, added excitement in what he's doing. It's the same idea here. That there was also separation. It's going to be a separation. So separation is building identity, like he says here. Building identity from strengthening a positive side of a quality that you don't like. But there's always a positive application that you can find. Strengthening that, and that itself takes over the whole negative aspect of what you didn't like. So if it's excitement, that I have excitement about the wrong things, all I need to do is build excitement. Every time that I find myself in a position to add excitement in the good things, that itself, it's like it extinguishes by eating away the negative excitement that I had about negative things. So we'll continue tomorrow with B'ezrat Hashem, and we'll see how he's going to take this piece about this interpretation of the Maggid of Lo Tichbe, not will be extinguished, in another direction.